Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia and an operational report on the offensive by the Ukrainian forces. So the Ukrainian forces continue their offensive. They're pretty much a summer offensive. It's still ongoing. It's still not over yet. And we shall start off with mainly the Zaporizhzhia front. At the Zaporizhzhia front, the Ukrainian forces continue multi-prone directions offensive over the Kayamsky sector, Orikhiv sector, as well as the Velika Novosibirsk sector. At the Kayamsky sector, the Ukrainian forces continue to try to secure some kind of position around the Pyatikaki region, as well as a possible capture of Zarybyanki. They really want this place because you can't really secure Pyatikaki without Zarybyanki. Unfortunately, this seems to be a problem for the Ukrainian forces because they just are not able to capture Zarybyanki due to very strong defensive positions by the Russian forces in this area here, as the Russian forces have a major entrenchment just north of the village, and the Ukrainian forces did try to storm the trenches many times, but sometimes the storming of the trenches turned out to be just an ambush, some kind of trap. So kind of problematic for the Ukrainian forces. They are just unable to do much about that. Let me adjust the zoom so that you can see better. And so the other front is actually at the Orikhiv sector. So this is Orikhiv. At the Orikhiv sector, the Ukrainian forces continue their attack towards Robotyne. This attack, let me thicken my lines, my arrows, because I think this is not thick enough. So the Ukrainian forces continue to attack towards Robotyne, and they did reach the first line of defense, as I mentioned before, around here. However, they are unable to push further due to strong Russian defense actions. The units that comes down to this area here, a lot of losses because they need the armor to send the people and ammunition to the front, but armor tends to be a pretty big target for the Russian forces. The situation currently remains to be very uncertain. The Ukrainian mapping shows that the front line looks like this. However, Russian sources saying that they have been pushed back a little bit, so it's kind of unclear what is the situation here. Over the past 24 to 48 hours, you didn't really have reports of fighting over at Robotyne. Only some scouting actions from the Ukrainian side. We're not exactly sure if that's the case, because this is a very contested place. So for no fighting to be reported here is kind of weird. There is also some probings now and then in other locations, but largely not really important. There's nothing much happening over at the Huyaipole sector, and over at the Velika Novosibirsk sector, this remains to be one of the very place that the Ukrainians put a lot of attention on. The Ukrainian forces continue to be targeting the capture of Pryone. They tend to attack from two different directions, from the west and from the north, and they're also trying to secure the lines around Rivnopil, and over at the Makarivka, Staromayoske, and Urozhaine sector, the Ukrainian forces continue to attack on Urozhaine, mostly coming from the north, and they attack Staromayoske from the north and from the west. In the latest information coming from the pro-Russian sources is that the Ukrainian forces actually managed to break through into Staromayoske itself and managed to capture the northern half, and the Russian forces actually counterattack. So far, after the counterattack, the Ukrainian forces have been pushed out of the village, but not very far. Like maybe at this forest line, or maybe just outside around here. The Russian forces controls the entire settlement. However, the Ukrainian forces is just outside, and it looks like maybe at this moment of time, as per this recording, fighting is actually ongoing. But of course, the reports will only come later, so we do not know what is the situation. But likelihood is the Ukrainians are actually trying to storm the village again to capture this this strategically pretty convenient and important town of Staromayoske that links to Urozhaine. and the Ukrainian forces also putting pressure from the north, attacking the Russian forces at Uruzhaine. So we are going to see whether the Ukrainians can actually make some kind of success. However, Staromayorsky is actually in the downhill. The Russian forces continue to have a position over on the western part of Staromayorsky, which is on the higher ground. So the Ukrainian forces also have been reported to be trying to attack this high ground over here. So the Ukrainian forces continue their operations over the Velikonovo sector of the Zaporizhia front. So that's all from the Zaporizhia front. Ukrainian forces also did some counter-offensive previously over the Novo-Mikhailivka region. They managed to recapture this stronghold of the Menizheri, and the Ukrainian forces are also trying to push out to get more buffer zone around the stronghold. If not, then they have been under a lot of pressure from the Russian forces to try to recapture this Menizheri fortified position. There's nothing much to talk about in terms of Marinka, because there's always fighting over here, so nothing too much to report. The Ukrainian forces over at the Avdiivka front continue their offensive in this region here, trying to push to cut off this pincer that the Russians have developed around Avdiivka. Fighting is reported at Krasnohorivka, Versailles, as well as Pervomaisky. However, since the last operational report, there is some hiccups for the Ukrainians. Over in the northern part of Vodian, the Russian forces managed to counterattack and actually went all the way off the outskirts of Zheveny. And since then, the Russian forces continue to hold this position. So as a result, the Ukrainian forces are very busy trying to retake the lost position over at the Zheveny region. So far, they have no success just yet. The Russians are very keen to hold these advanced positions that continue to threaten Tonenke, Zheveny, and perhaps even Lashtokine. Lashtokine is particularly important because this road here, this is the only road in and out of Avdiivka, this road. So, and it goes past Latoshkine. So this is extremely vital, because a Russian capture of Lashtokine would mean operational encirclement of the Ukrainian forces. So this is not a joke. This is actually quite serious for the Ukrainians to hold the position of Zheveny and prevent the Russian capture, because Russian capturing Zheveny will allow them to capture Tonenke probably very easily, because it's just a road down, it's just a village, and they will be able to launch another attack across the field and threaten Lashtokine. Any Russian positions that is around this area would mean fire control over the road, and this road cannot be under fire control for the Ukrainians, so because that will be operational encirclement. So that's all from the Avdiivka front in terms of the Ukrainian operations. The Ukrainian operations over at the Bakhmut front has a lot of hiccups. Previously, the Ukrainian forces had actually did pretty well. They attacked Berkivka. They actually even went, I think, in some reports saying that they entered Berkivka in the outskirts. However, since then, the Russian forces have counterattacked, and the front line now is around here, just off the reservoir. And the Ukrainian forces currently is trying to counterattack to retake this position. So far, the battle is still ongoing. There is interesting reports from the Russian side talking about the Ukrainian attacking towards this location called the Myolinovka. Yeah, Myolinovka. So this reported by the Russian Defense Ministry. So far, I think it's just talking about the direction of attack. The Ukrainian forces also were reported to be putting some pressure over at Orikovo-Vasilivka. In the southern flank, the Ukrainian forces is focusing their attention on Klishchiivka, as well as the securing of this canal region. So main attacks coming from the northwest of Klishchiivka. The Ukrainian forces is attacking on the western part of Andriivka, trying to capture more buffer zone around the canal, as well as attacking Kuryumivka. In terms of Kuryumivka, the most likely the Ukrainian forces are fighting probably just outside, or probably might have already entered Kuryumivka, given that it's just off the canal. And there is also previous reports of Ukrainian forces attacking on the western part of Andreevka, and in fact, the attack around the canal has been pretty successful. Whoops. If you look at the front line, the Ukrainian front line is actually here, pretty far away from this canal here. You can see that the Ukrainian forces actually made progress eastward towards Klishchiivka and Andreevka. So in terms of Andreevka, the latest report suggests that the Ukrainian forces did manage to attack all the way to the outskirts of Klishchiivka again. They managed to most probably go down this road, and they managed to push very hard and went pretty far. However, they are unable to hold the position. The Russian forces launched a counterattack, and Ukrainian forces got routed from here. And with this routing, the Russian forces even managed to capture even more ground. So capturing this this important junction over here, where the roads leads to Klishchiivka. So the Russian forces actually expanded their buffer zone due to their counterattack against the Ukrainian offensive. So situation at Klishchiivka continued to be pretty difficult for both sides, to be honest. And there is rumors of Russian forces having to withdraw on the southwestern part of Klishchiivka because of heavy Ukrainian artillery in this region here. They are unable to hold the position. So situation very, very dynamic over at the Bakhmut front. And the Ukrainian forces' other main offensive is coming in the Crimea front. As you can see, based on the icon, you can see the Ukrainian forces are attacking in multiple locations at Kamazynivka, Novovodyan, Makiivka, and there are also counterattack over at Toske, towards Dibrova, within the Serebryansky Forestry, and Bilohorivka. So the Ukrainian forces are attacking across the entire Crimea front, and the Russian forces basically continue to fight fire with Russian forces launching their own offensive at Nevsky, Terny, and the western part of Dibrova, and within the Serebryansky Forestry. So this region here, fighting is currently really fierce, but the Ukrainian forces did seem to stop the Russian advance around Toske, with the Ukrainian forces currently being reported to be in the counteroffensive. However, the Russians are pushing at Dibrova. Maybe the attempt is actually to straighten the front line. So we shall continue to see how this goes. Over at the Crimea front, there's not a lot of information to talk about in this region here, as the fighting is pretty vague in terms of the reporting. And Ukrainians continue to be probing and fighting the Russian offensive over at Novoselivsky, as well as around Berestove region, with the Ukrainian forces launching some limited counterattack. The Russian forces are making very good progress over within Novoselivsky and the southern part. So the Ukrainian forces did try to hold the positions and try to counterattack to prevent the Russian forces from capturing this vital city of Novoselivsky. The reason why Novoselivsky is very vital, why it's so hard fought over, is because this entire road coming from Kupiansk leading all the way to Sviatove. For the Ukrainians, other than this area here, where the Ukrainians have the front line over this region here, the road leads all the way to Sviatove uninterrupted, except at Novoselivsky. So you can see that the main road actually leads through Novoselivsky, and the Ukrainian forces are determined to hold this position, or at least have some fire control over the road, so that the Russian forces cannot use this road, and it makes their logistic a lot more complicated. So this is the reason why Novoselivsky is so important for the Ukrainians, and they continue to send in reinforcement from the region and the area, and also from the south, from Stemakivka, where there is their forward operating base, and to send up to Novoselivsky as reinforcement to fight back the Russian forces offensive. And this is also why the Russians are always also fighting over this region here, because they need to secure this junction here, this road here. So fighting is still ongoing, and also the Ukrainian forces did launch a drone strike over at Sevastopol. Basically a few aerial drones and 2 surface drones. Didn't really do much. The Russians taking out pretty easily because I think the scale of the attack is still not big enough. And over at the Kherson region, the Ukrainian forces continue to hold positions at Dachi with constant reinforcement and resupply via speedboat. But every time they do this is highly risky, with Russian forces able to shell them with mortar and artillery, and there are losses every time that the Ukrainians try to reinforce or resupply. But the Ukrainian forces seems to take this pretty lightly. It feels like they puts a lot of importance in this operation. It seems like they have some bigger plans planned in this area here. There was previous also Ukrainian landing over in this area here, just off the railway bridge. Suddenly there's no more news about all these forces that landed here, so we're not sure what happens to them. So this is the operational report for the Ukrainian operations in the Ukraine war in the defense of their homeland against the Russian invaders, and I'll see you in the next update.